I saw not only the burnt area, but I saw scenes in my mind of disasters and bombed out, like burnt out areas, like a war zone.
Mm.
And I've had to think about it all this time. Exactly what was, and it must have been God, what was he exactly telling me? I think the main thing was that I would be protected. And I have been. To have survived what I did when I got back to Toronto, being grabbed, tortured so long, locked up in a mental asylum, and for 9 months before a minister got me out into a normal jail, and 18 months before any kind of a trial. And then there were 3 attempts to murder me while I was wrongly imprisoned.
When I get guests on the Heavenly Tea, on New Earth Mamas, you know they're going to be interesting, fascinating. This man, Eric Biddle, has had to move country. A protectorate moved him for his own safety. We're going to be talking about issues that happened in Canada quite a long time ago, but which certainly are accurate and informing what is happening now, things we need to be aware of. Hello, Eric. Hello. Nice
Hello.
to see you. I just did a mini introduction because, of course, I don't really know anything about you, but I know that I know a little bit in the fact that if you were moved from one country to another by a
Yes.
third agency, you knew some things that certain people didn't want out, huh? And I hope
You're right.
talk about that. I mean, I'm glad that you're feeling happy now from, shall we say
Yeah.
that you live or not, but to start talking about these things because this is the time we reveal all, isn't it? Piece by piece.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be interviewed by you.
Thank you. Well, it's always the same for me. When I conceived this channel, it was the idea of you could have a chat with somebody, and during the lockdown, it
Yes.
was removed from us. So this idea of
Yeah.
just having a cup of tea or coffee with someone became a sacred moment. And then I used it for, all sorts of wonderful investigations, lots of spiritual investigations,
Ah,
discussions with people like you who have extraordinary information and stories. So that's really how it
yes.
exists. Yes.
Yeah.
Have
If
you?
you want, well,
Yeah.
you're in charge. I can tell you a little bit about my family history, which might help.
Yes, let's set the scene because perhaps just a key in for people listening. I know that there are lots of elements of this story you're going to be revealing to me, but
Mm.
was there something particular you wanted to focus on? For me, I'm very much into safe environments for children, which of
I
course,
agree with that. As a teacher, I taught children for 8 years in Spain. And for me, it was absolutely essential that they be safe. And if I heard that there was some problem somewhere, even at home, I had good friends in the Guardia Civil.
good to have. And we
You
know,
know who they are.
sadly, that the children are at the core always of everything of this
Yeah,
corruption. So I just wanted
yeah.
to kind of thread that in for people because they don't know what they're going to experience, but they they're going to start to build a picture. So yes, please tell me a tiny bit
Okay.
about the story of
Well,
this.
I was born in Vancouver, uh, Canada, a long time ago, 75 years ago. And my father was in the Air Force during the war. And he went back to university after the war and graduated in engineering. And I was there for a year before we moved to northern Quebec because that's the only place you could get a job. So one side of Canada to the other. And we were there about 2 or 3 years or 4. And then we moved to south near Montreal. And I was in Montreal in my formative years. As you know, that's a very important time. And till I was 17. And I was encouraged to go away from a certain friend of mine who wasn't how shall I say, he wasn't encouraging academics.
Ah.
So I went, I enrolled, I got accepted at the University of British Columbia, and I was there for a year. And then I was a little bit lonely and away from family at 17 and 18. And I came back to Kingston to continue at Queen's University.
Is that near to Montreal? My Canadian
Kingston is halfway between Montreal and Toronto.
Okay.
Almost, very close, yeah. And I used to call it the Oxford of Canada. But so I graduated. I started in engineering, which I didn't like, and went into straight sciences with the view of going into medicine. But I didn't get accepted. In my last year, I enjoyed my life too much with partying, and my marks were just a hair too low. So I went and I worked for DuPont. But something I can tell you about me, which is very revealing. When I was at UBC in the second term in Vancouver, on Wednesdays, it was the laboratory for chemistry. And it went till 5:30. It was a long day for science students. And I used to catch the last bus from the campus into the city of Vancouver. And 3 times in a row, I sat on this bus. There was only one other passenger. He was a very haunted-looking older man who just sat there looking straight ahead, never saying a word. And on the third trip, actually, it was my birthday, the 28th of February, it came into my mind, Nazi war criminal. Not a name, anything else, but just the thought. I wasn't hearing voices like, the mental illness.
Well, clairaudience works that way, doesn't it? It just,
Yes.
Some will receive through vision and some through sound.
Yeah. And I went to the authorities and I said, is it possible that there is a Nazi war criminal here in Canada? And they said, Mr. Biddle, there are none, and we recommend strongly that you focus on your studies. And so I did. I did my year, and I got accepted at Queen's, which was not easy because they have high standards. But many years later, a Jewish organization arrested this man, and it was wanted Dutch Nazi war criminal Jacob Lutyens.
Right.
So I have this gift for being able to almost read people like an open book.
Now, how has that got you into this trouble that you've now been shipped across the globe? Let's call it the globe. Because obviously it's to do with this. It's to do with this same fine sense of perception that's got you in trouble. But how important?
I think I found out too much about corruption and criminal activity with people in high positions.
How? How were you in that position? That's an important. The reason I say that is, right now we've got this theater playing out with Trump and Musk. Okay.
Yes.
And we know that it's trying to reveal more information which has been hidden away. That's why they're playing this game. But the idea of how a good person can be in the presence of baddies, let's just make it super simple, That is a possibility sometimes. Sometimes we are placed in a place, in a position to
Yes.
witness something important because later on we're going to reveal it. That's what I
Yeah.
suspect with you.
So the question is, how did I get moving around so much?
Well,
Well,
how did you
first
get
of
into
all,
the position that you saw what you should not have? You heard what you
oh,
ought.
well, it was through work
Right.
and in
Let's get that
studies.
introduction flowing now.
I worked for DuPont. That was pretty straightforward, 7 years. It was a huge chemical and other, it used to own General Motors, to give you an idea. And I quit after 7 years. I was bored. And I went and spent a year in British Columbia in the mountains, the interior. We call it God's country there because it's so wonderful. And then I met a lady, and she wanted to get away, so we moved to Vancouver. And she was a physiotherapist and got a job easily, and I became factory manager for an adhesives company. And the weather is horrible in Vancouver. The one year there, it was 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Mm. And so I said, I've always had a yearning for Africa. So I did well with the company. They were happy with me, but they wouldn't pay me what was competitive. So I said, well, eventually, I quit. If you won't give me an extra week to go on holidays, I wanted 3 weeks instead of 2.
Yeah.
Horrible. And so I went. And I really enjoyed Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. The climate. It was like going back into old England, 150 years before.
A lot of people will know a little bit about that from Sasha Stone. I don't know if you're aware of him, but he's a big activist, let's just call him that, very much in the disclosure movement, very active. And he's probably about my age, I would say in his 50s. And his childhood was in Zimbabwe. And of course, it's completely different now to then 40 odd years ago. And it must have been similar difference that you've experienced as well. I could imagine the changes in that country.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at first I didn't know the language. It was Victorian. I was very popular. They invited me to a party, and they said, well, don't forget your costume. And I said, oh, is it swimming then? No, is it a dress-up party? Oh, no, it's a swimsuit. And what is your line of country? Well, I said Canadian, and I was speaking to the wife of a retired MI6 boss. Mm-hmm. She asked me this question at the party. So it was that kind of language, and it was a real eye-opener for me. And I met people there who had been involved in the counter war, whatever it is, the Civil War, and on both sides. And I made good people liked me, both of them, the Africans and the Europeans. And I got into some trouble because I was working for I came to Canada, and I worked here for a while, and then my papers were done, and I returned to Zimbabwe with my dog. And they really didn't appreciate human rights for the natives at all. I was a manager of safety and engineering for Blue Ribbon Foods. But also they wanted me to do other work, which is intelligence.
So
Yes.
who was the they? Are we talking about British infiltration?
Rhodesians.
Right.
Let's just call them Rhodesians.
Okay.
The lawyer that did my paperwork, for example. And I wasn't too keen about it. But anyways, they liked me. They thought I was clever and I could see into things. And I had international experience, so on.
May I just
And
ask for a moment? Were you a member of any Masonic lodge or anything like that? Or you?
oh, good God! That now you're. I wouldn't. I would rather be dead than belong to a Masonic lodge.
The only reason I put that in there is I could tell that, but I wanted to put that in because the secret handshakes that go on with connections.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's important for people listening to understand that what was being perceived about you was something else. It's different kind of an intelligence. You're already threading in some of this into the story. So I just wanted to emphasize a little bit. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't use the word for myself, charisma, or I don't know.
It's a kind of energy, isn't it? It's a sense of aliveness that people notice.
Yeah. And a alive, vivid mind.
Yeah.
And the ladies liked me. I wasn't so. I was young and handsome, and so
that could be tricky.
Enough said. And but I began to see that there wasn't much future for that country under Mugabe, and I came home after a little over a year.
Oh, okay, sure.
I came back to Canada. So it was because of, the climate's wonderful, sunny, not too hot, no humidity, no insects. And
corruption, huh? Layers and layers of corruption. Yeah.
And the natives are ground into the dirt like insects.
But with the corruption, let's just establish this, because as far as I've seen from other West African countries and even East African, it's not just whites who were the corrupt, it was the official top level blacks as well.
They were worse than the whites.
You get $2 million to build a hospital, 1 million goes in your pocket instantly, and that was just
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to put that one in there as we're playing with this idea of purity.
Yes.
So this adventure.
Part of my responsibility was security also. For example, we would have two different tribes working in the factory. I had a responsibility for numerous factories in Blue Ribbon Foods. And they would sabotage the other tribes' work.
Wow.
So we had to get investigators to go in and find out what was going on. And I had to coordinate that.
Interesting, your roles you've been put into. And this woman at the party with the MI6 connection, what information were they trying to access? Was it just for power play to position themselves, or was there some international ploy going on?
Well, I think they really wanted me to work for them in South Africa.
Right. This leads to the ANC thing later on.
And I listen very well. My hearing is excellent, and I'm very analytical, and I learn things very well. We learn a lot more by listening than by talking. I don't have to
lots of things too, can't you? You can listen to humans, and you can tune into spirit and listen, like you've demonstrated. You. Okay.
Yes.
So what happened? I want to know now. Now we've got a little package.
Yep.
Of you in your youth, right?
Okay.
And we can see this human with courage. I can see that. I can see an adventurous spirit, and some restless, but to a good degree, in that not content to suffer injustice or things which simply do not work. So seeking something better.
Yeah.
Now, let's just quickly, can we flash now? Can we just flash forward to this book?
Yes.
Then pick it up through again. Let's do that. So
the one I'm working on now is this one. I don't know if you can see it.
Plans of Mice and Mulrooney by Eric Biddle.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I printed out what I couldn't send to you, but anyways, I did another one before this called Operation Ransac - Conspiracy. And I did work for American intelligence before in Canada,
Okay.
which was very dangerous. And I was, the Americans approached me to go in my work traveling through Canada to do eyes and ears work for drug dealing and shipments from Canada into America. And I did that for 2 years. And it was very stressful because sometimes I uncovered police in Canada who were on the take.
Yeah.
And
was the CIA in the USA?
No, this time it was the CIA was before that. I forgot.
Oh,
I did a hostage
goodness.
rescue. Before the drugs, I was asked by a mother in California whose son was a hostage in Zimbabwe, Brett Baldwin. It might even still be on the internet. And the Americans were already working on it, as were the British and Australians. But they thought I could, because of my connections. I knew the head of CIO in Zimbabwe, which is like CIA in Zimbabwe. I got around. They liked me. I don't know. So I met with I had a long distance with the CIA of Zimbabwe, and I convinced him that I had very strong evidence of subversion. They love that word. They hate it. I mean, they're paranoid about it. And he got the ambassador from Zimbabwe to America, and I have a photo of him somewhere too, to come up to Chicago to meet with me. And I went from Toronto to Chicago and met up with this Edmund Chippomunga. And, I, pardon the vulgar language, but I bullshitted my way through. And he was very happy.
Acting. Well, I would call it improvisation. You could use that term too.
Okay, I improvise, yes.
It's fine. You can swear if you really want to.
I usually don't speak so vulgarly, but I do sometimes. And he, at the end of our meeting, he said to me, he got up close, his bodyguard was behind, and he said, "If you are with the CIA, we will have you killed anywhere in the world, somewhere." Oh, I said, I see. I'm not. But of course I was, because I was registered with the embassy in Ottawa. I don't want to say too much about them because they'll be angry with me. I don't want them as enemies.
They are changing, of course, but even so, you don't know who's still left on the books, do you? So,
yeah. Under the new administration, it's chaos there. Nobody knows if they're going to have a job or not.
Well, I know there are so many rogue elements, so it's going to be a tough job, I'm sure, to detect who's who. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sort of died gently down, did it? But you found yourself in another stream.
Yes. So I did this narcotics agent undercover for 2 years. And then I came mixed up with a gentleman from the British consulate, not the embassy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call him MJ, as I have in the book. And he said, I'm very interested in the African National Congress. And he says, we can't do anything because of diplomatic concerns. But could you investigate for us?
Can
I'm
I
a
just ask
Canadian.
the MJ? That reminds me of the Majestic operation. Was it part of that? Do you know?
No,
No, okay.
no.
Just another of these acronyms. Okay, I know I've heard that before.
It's
So.
just his initials, first and last
Oh,
name.
okay. It was just his initials. Okay, because I know there's so many different departments within
No.
these espionage groups. Okay, right.
That was Operation Ransac, RANSAC.
Okay.
So I was working in industry, doing very well, and it was very flexible. They were happy if I brought results, and it gave me flexibility to meet with these people from Zimbabwe. And finally, they flew in a man from Lusaka, Zambia. And
I'll just ask you once more, sorry to interrupt you, but the ANC, I and probably most people just associate with South Africa, but it was also Zimbabwe and...
Well, this was after Zimbabwe, after I'd come back.
Yeah, but the ANC was in different...
1985, 86.
Okay, it was an infiltrating movement throughout Southern Africa, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they wanted to know what they were up to. Mm-hmm. The British, your country. my ancestors are from Britain, going back a long time. In fact, my great-grandfather was one of the starters of British intelligence.
Uh-huh. It did run.
Anyways, that's the Harris side of the family. So I did, and finally with this man from, he was a Muslim terrorist, and as I found out afterwards, but he had $50,000, and he said, we want you to do the seed work for an import-export company to get weapons from Canada, bombs and weapons from Canada to Southern Africa for the war against the apartheid regime. Well, that's Canadian soil. And in anybody's book, that's terrorism. I mean, whether you love them or not, it's not legal.
Yeah.
So I was increasingly aware of surveillance on me by the Canadians because Mulrooney, the prime minister, was supporting the ANC, unlike America and the UK, and he hoped that his support would get him reelected.
Right. So this British infiltration, this spy guy, Mr. MJ, was he friends with Mulrooney then? Was he supporting him?
No, he was a British diplomat. I'm sure he was whatever.
But it seems there was some sort of
he was an African.
Between them.
He had been in Africa.
Okay.
Not in the field anymore. You know, when you get older, the field is too difficult. And anyways, he was very pleased with what I found out. But that's when I went out west to visit. I got a call from the woman I fell in love with, in truth, 7 years before, and I went across Canada to see Anne. And surveillance followed me all the way. I detail this in the book. And finally, I got to meet her. I don't know whether I should talk about what happened on this mountain. It's you might think I'm crazy. Well,
tell me anything. I know nothing crazy. I'm open to everything.
Okay.
Up to you how much you want to share.
Well, it's the truth. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So I was driving with Anne in her car. She picked me up at the airport, and we were going to her summer house on Kootenay Lake in the interior. And I had surveillance, and it was really making me annoyed. We stopped for a while, and we sort of snuggled up beside a small lake, and they were watching in a car across this little lake.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I managed to lose them for one day, 24 hours.
Oh.
I went up to the top of Fairview Mountain and drove me there through logging roads. You have to know your way.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And I slept there overnight. But late in the night, early morning, I was woken up by a very strong, authoritative voice. And I jumped up. It said, "Get up and look around." And so I did. I walked a short distance away from where I was sleeping on the ground. And everywhere I looked, everything was burnt. Burnt tree stubs. There was nothing living remaining. And then he said, this voice, and no, I said, first of all, does this have to be? Because I was aware that I was being shown the future. And I said, does this have to be? And after a few seconds, he said, yes. And before that, he said to me, I feel towards you like a father feels towards a son. Now, he wasn't saying that I was the Messiah or anything, but I think the analogy was that I was being looked after, especially the way a father looks after a son. Not that I can't heal your cancer or anything like that.
Well, you probably can if you understand it. I bet you could. Most of us can.
I have to use ivermectin. Anyways, so I went back to bed and lay down and thought about this quite a while. And it's been with me all this time. And I saw not only the burnt area, but I saw scenes in my mind of disasters and bombed out, or like burnt out areas, like a war zone. Mm. And I've had to think about it all this time. Exactly what was, and it must have been God, what was he exactly telling me? I think the main thing was that I would be protected. And I have been. To have survived what I did when I got back to Toronto, being grabbed, tortured so long, locked up in a mental asylum, and for 9 months before a minister got me out into a normal jail, and 18 months before any kind of a trial, and then there were 3 attempts to murder me while I was wrongly imprisoned. It was, orchestrated by the Toronto police. The first one, they locked me up with a Nepalese man with some sort of dreadful lung infection. Only me in one little compartment. They parked us. We never got to court, and they left us in the hot sun, hoping I would get infected. So that was number one. And then after 18 months, I got moved, thanks to this minister who knew me and my family from Kingston. I got moved to a decent jail. And what was the next?
So still no trial at this point. You were just
the trial was
by these corrupt police involved in the arms export and the drugs export.
Yeah, there were two other attempts. The attempts to murder me, the two other ones were after I was sentenced and in prison. I don't know. Hallelujah. Anyways,
There are gremlins, and you know when you just sent me that message that said I'm back in, I just
yeah.
done a command with Creator. I said you've got to remove all the interference.
Oh,
It worked.
okay.
They did it for us. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah, I believe. Yep. Yep.
I'm just going to tell you something aside before we get back into it. But
Yeah.
my husband to be is in the States, and the reason
Yeah.
we're not together is because of last time I went to visit him, some rogue CIA put a drone above my head and said they'd like to kill me
Oh,
on his behalf. So I think that's possibly why something doesn't want me to hear your story.
well, it's, 39 years I've had a media blackout. It could be me, or maybe you and I together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
How are you living now? Have you got a nice life? I mean, have you managed to
Well,
something?
I got 300,000 euros compensation, which is nothing. It's the lawyers here and the government say it should be 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and charges against the police. But I can't get any lawyer in Canada to help me go after the Canadian government.
No.
And it was Britain who put me here in Finland.
Which was, I mean, I hope we get to that part of the story because that's extraordinary. Let's see, where did we leave off? But use your fresh energy as well. So we were talking about these attempts on your existence, and then what happened? How you got out of that, and
well, I didn't know whether you wanted to hear about the trials, or should I jump to being in prison?
Gah. Let's do a brief thing about the trials. Tell us a little bit about this. What were you actually accused of?
Okay. I was grabbed and thrown in. The torture began with trying to freeze me to death. I already had bronchitis. You'll read about it. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they threw me in jail, and they took me around, and they told me to keep my American friends out of it. They still thought I was working for the Americans.
Mm.
Stupid.
So are these the corrupt police we're basically
talking about? But it's the whole police force.
Yeah.
95% are Masons.
Yeah.
And I know because some of the guards said things to me. They didn't expect me to live. They would not have told me these things if they thought I was going to survive.
How did you survive? How?
And people. There's a wonderful, real Christian lady. There's not very many real ones.
No.
Sorry. But this Reverend Mary Elizabeth Ranger came to visit me all the time. And finally, when I got, after 8.5 years, a bail to be released, she signed. And they tried to scare her. They said, oh, you could lose your house. And they were all Masons, too, that looked after signing papers. And she said, don't bother me with that. I didn't see her, but she told me afterwards. And she would have been a little older than you at the time. But in the trial, you won't believe, when it got to the Supreme Court. Oh no, you want to know the beginning?
Yeah,
okay.
Oh wow!
I'm thrown in jail.
I'm thrown in jail. Supreme Court. There's obviously in between. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thrown in jail, and the police took my passport. There's a little photo, and they went and showed it to some woman called Mary Sue Fitzhenry, who had been mugged, and the man had beaten her up, and some 2 kilometers away, from where I was, and she described the man as in black, pockmarked face, black shoes, and he apparently stamped on her face. So she knew absolutely that he had hard black shoes. So this uniformed policeman goes to the hospital and shows her my one picture. And of course, it has my name beside it too. And asks her if this is the guy. I didn't fit the description at all. I was all in white, including all white shoes. Mm. But my lawyer betrayed me too, and he was a Mason.
I think the lawyers are all in cahoots, even a few who might not.
Yeah.
So, you know, they have things on each other. I lost my children that way. I know.
Sorry, you love?
I lost my children that way.
Oh, no.
I was nearly winning them back from my awful ex and his even more awful future wife. And then I saw a look from the judge, from his lawyer, who is a tough international one, to the judge, and I knew, oh, I've lost. It was a blackmail look. That's what it was. That's what happened. That was the moment. And so I learned that, sadly, 20 years ago. Yeah. Mm.
Oh, well,
so I totally understand. They do this too much. We've got to uproot this disgusting slime.
There's one, I don't know if he's in MP still or not, or even alive, Galloway, who I don't know, I think he's a bit crazy, but one of his things was to make police state if they're Freemasons, if they go to testify. Mm-hmm. That would be number one step.
Yeah.
But they don't want it.
So this woman, obviously, in her trauma, said yes. And
here she is lying on a trolley, black and blue face. And so that was the beginning of what the lawyer even called fabrication of eyewitness identification.
Yeah. How did this end up in the High Court then? How did that happen?
Well, I went through 2 trials. They even tried to have me locked up forever as a dangerous offender.
How did they?
And if you talk, I wasn't afraid. They threw everything in the book and more.
So what were they so terrified of you revealing if you had been a man?
I had the evidence, irrefutable. I think I told you about the African National Congress being involved in terrorism on Canadian soil. And Mulrooney, according to my CIA contact, well, I call American intelligence. Anyways, he called me 3 years ago. And he said, the reason the whole government went after you is because Mulrooney asked several big police forces in cities across Canada to silence you. And the worst one, Toronto, agreed because they're the most criminal. I would go so far as to say evil. Yeah. 6,700 officers. And so Mulrooney must have spoken to Bill McCormick, the police chief of Toronto. And guess who arrested me?
Not the chief.
When the description of me and the description given by the victim were night and day different. The daughter of the police chief, Kathy McCormick. Mm. And guess who, after lying in court, perjury about my arrest, guess who got promoted to sergeant in the really good police group, the Ontario Provincial Police? Her. And the whole family was in the Toronto Police, even the mother.
Well, these systems, as
They don't want,
they're
they
endemic,
know that
aren't
I
they?
know this
Yeah, well, I know that this is
and
completely
more.
possible and rife. And, I know it more from the United States. Dr. Robert Young, a wonderful health practitioner, just slammed into prison for 5 years for doing nothing wrong, only helping with his beautiful grace and heart and intelligence.
Yeah.
It's rife. I know. It's scary.
Yeah.
That's why we have to address it.
We have to stick together.
Help you? How did you get the British on your side? Because they're not saints. They're not angels.
I know they're not. But we made a deal, and the deal was they couldn't help me in Canada, but once I got out, because of diplomatic bullshit, sorry.
Yeah.
Improprieties. So I was in Spain after 8.5 years of prison. I was harassed more, so I fled. My Finnish auntie said, "Here's your ticket. You're leaving." And because they're going to kill you. I even had connections with organized crime. They knew. They have people in the police. Okay, it's dangerous.
And even to go to Spain, you wouldn't have had a visa, so it would have been a temporary
No,
thing.
I had a one-way ticket, but I managed to get legal residency there because of a good, kindly doctor.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And wait till you hear this.
Yeah.
You'll flip your wig. Well, no, you have nice hair. When my case was before the Supreme Court, the highest court in Canada, after 8.5 years. 2 prominent doctors, one a holistic psychiatrist who had known me for many years, friend in Kingston, and his friend, Hans Arndt. Hans Arndt didn't know me, but he came to visit me twice and, see what I was about. And Hans Arndt went to the Supreme Court judge. And if I can remember what McCaldon said, the other one, this Eric Biddle is completely innocent. You will find something to set him free. And within a month, I was out. And Mary Ranger, the Anglican priest, was there to sign. I would not have been released without her. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? They could have lost not only their jobs, but their freedom.
Well,
is that love?
Of course,
that love or not?
The whole system being corrupt, it would have been hard to know who to arrest first because they would have had to do that to themselves, wouldn't they? That's the house of cards we got to bring down. Thank God for the angels in your life, but that's your residence of your soul, isn't it? Attracting
there were lots of angels all around me.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to that early story of the voice, because it means that you're a specific kind of being. How often have you given this testimony to people over the years?
I've only tried to write about it, but I can't. I've never been able to give this testimony. No one will talk to me. They're all afraid. Many journalists in Canada, no one will touch me.
Wow. Yeah. But we can't live our lives in fear. This is the thing.
Well, all the people in that city and much of Canada live in total fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my lady friends.
Alternative movement within Canada, and then of course the beautiful truckers situation. That was a glimpse of hope and courage.
But that scared them more. And they just passed a bill that completely annihilates freedom of speech and freedom of anything. Border security nonsense.
Should we go back to the early vision in the camping that night?
Oh, yes.
Do you believe, because you will have gone through several hells and back in the darkness of those prison days and ask questions of your...
Yeah, but this was before the prison days.
Yes, but do you believe that vision is still coming to pass, or do you believe it was assigned to you in order to give you strength instead?
I believe the latter, that it was to give me faith and strength that I would survive. And that if someone was with me, they would also be protected.
I find it.
I have no doubt.
The people I love to help and work with are always about bringing in the full soul into the body. You know, I've got my byline, activating human potential, because I know
Yeah.
my own life, I should also just given up 10 times over and killed myself over the tragedies.
Yeah.
You know, but so the spirit is always the most powerful thing, and that's what we have to keep
Yes.
demonstrating. And your story is completely testament to that. Let's talk about Spain. You can't have been well either.
Well, let me finish the trial business.
Okay, let's go back there.
It's first it started with the passport. Then they substituted my white shoes for a pair stolen with black soles and put them in the court. And then they got an all-female jury. And you never have a jury in eyewitness cases, only a judge, but all female. And not only all female, but they had 50 more chances to pick exactly the ones to convict.
They will all have been rape victims themselves or something, and had abuse done to them by.
Yeah, they know. They're not stupid, these lawyers.
Yeah. Oh.
Prosecutors, sorry.
Oh, sickening. Sickening.
Yeah. And Canada absolutely doesn't want the world to know what you've heard from me.
Because Canada's such a sweet place.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, and so cute and so polite.
And
but this is important because this is how most people live, isn't it? On this kind of cute little surface layout.
Yeah.
You're talking about, don't be silly, ridiculous. And actually, it's a very dark, disgusting underbelly, which must be exposed. Yeah.
Yeah. And what bothers me most about Canada, especially Toronto and the East, is the hypocrisy. They're always telling the world that they know the way to govern and get rid of corruption and blah, 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 and politically correct language. And, this whole, that makes me sick.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of that here too. I mean, it is everywhere. I mean, that's how they just.
But I think the Americans, they admit there's corruption. I mean, they don't deny it. Canada denies it.
Yeah, I had a British friend recently, and she was suggesting that in America, there's the deep state. It's really active. And I said, the deep state is probably far more active in Britain as the originator of the empire and various ancient stories. So it just looks like it's all cute and refined, and it is not. None of these polite places are. Yeah.
No, they're not.
So it's an
harmless
interesting
and
country
nice
to have ended up in, because Finland has two sides to it, doesn't it? It's very controlled, and it's sort of weirdly independent. So we have to get onto that story. Do you want to say anything more about the trial, or? Okay.
Well, then they brought. They had two other unsolved cases that were vaguely similar. Women attacked by some man, not rape or anything, just physical attacks. So once they had this conviction for this lady that they set up with eyewitness, they got her talking to these two other women. And the policeman was having sex for a year with the one witness before the trial. I swear to God.
The list of mistrial points you could have brought forward is like
insane.
Yeah.
And my lawyer is a wonderful hero. He worked 23 years without money to clear my name.
Wow.
Leo Adler.
That's a good man. That can't have
good Jewish man. Good Jewish man.
Good.
And we are friends. He says I'm like a brother to him. And criminal lawyers, defense lawyers, are not loving of clients.
No, you have to have a very tough exterior, don't you? My
Yeah,
daughter
because women get
declined
eaten.
becoming a judge. She knew it was going to be
It's so hard for
Yeah.
women, that job. So hard.
Mm.
It's cruel.
Especially
And
when
I wanted to say one thing about the before the trials. This 9 months in the horrible psychiatric unit, I was forced, the guards told me the police had threatened them to keep me there, to make me break and confess. So that's why I was there. And I ended up being the assistant to the psychiatrist. So I learned a lot about psychiatry too.
But also you must have, let's go back to the charisma, the trust that they experienced with you must have overcome the fear of being reprimanded for not following the corrupt police regime agenda. So
you mean the guards?
Yeah, if the guards and the police say you got to break this guy, and then
like
you end up being an assistant, that I suppose that's doing a little.
Well, I just helped the psychiatrist. I didn't,
Yeah, but still, the fact that you weren't killed, that you weren't put
they
on
tried
all kinds of opioids and goodness knows what they might have given you.
Well, I was very careful, and in prison, I had my own, like in the world, I have my own network of people that tell me what's going on. And the next trial, I was in this horrible, you won't believe it. Can you see this?
Yeah.
That's Kingston Prison.
Okay.
Do you see me in there?
That must be you being held by the others with the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The others are professional athletes.
Big guys.
Like big guys.
Yeah.
Except the young guy they're all dead except for me.
Huh.
Alcohol and these steroid and so on for muscle.
They look
and
fancy.
The last one too. This is funny. Do you see? There I am. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Well, the man who attacked Paulette Brine, the number 3 victim, she said, oh, it wasn't me at first, and that he had shoulder length, like you, I guess, blonde hair. So I was drinking with some police in Spain, and they put the wig on me, and we were all laughing at how stupid the Toronto police are. You can put this in your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made friends with the Spanish police.
Oh, yeah, I don't hate the police.
Yeah.
But in Spain, there's a good chance of survival because it's a Catholic country. And Catholics don't let the Masons in.
Right, because it's the Jesuit versus Mason story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
I mean, what about, you obviously had this beautiful career and you must have had nice money and all the things.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
And that was cut off. And then you had this kind of desert.
And my family and friends.
Yeah. I mean, how did you build back are you working when you went to Finland finally? Did you?
Well, I went to Spain for 8 years and I was teaching.
First. Right.
Yeah. I didn't make a lot of money. Teachers don't make anyways, but
they don't.
Yeah. And then my neighbor was called by the Toronto police, my next door neighbor in Spain, John Gillette. And this Toronto cop told him that I was virtually a terrorist, more dangerous than Charles Manson or whatever, and to spread the word.
Nice.
So in a month, I was bankrupt. I didn't have savings to begin with.
No.
And I started drinking.
Yeah.
And I dried out in the hospital and came out, and I laid charges called a denuncia against this John Gillette. And we went to trial, and I won. And the judge at the end, I speak very good Castilian Spanish. And when I'm speaking as a test witness or about anything, I'm very credible. And the judge asked me, Senor Biddle, oh, you don't know Spanish, perhaps.
No, you
do
can
you
say it
want
and translate? It's fine.
Do you want to put this man in prison? Because can you imagine? I was almost recovered from the ordeal in Canada, getting my sanity and my body back together in Spain, and then they again.
So did you
That
say
was
yes?
horrible.
The guy imprisoned? Was he taken to prison? The corrupt?
No, I said he was a bit simple, and prison doesn't do people like him any good. He was a pawn.
Yeah.
The guy that should be in prison is the policeman in Toronto that told him these malicious lies.
That is a good thing to do.
Well, I try to live my faith. That's all. Maybe I don't always succeed, but I try.
Well, it feels good. You saw him as the soul rather than the pawn. Yeah.
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 So, and so after that, I was, well, we got married. It was a convenience, this Finnish lady. Marriage is convenience. She needed security. She couldn't speak English or Spanish very much. Or, anyways, so to get living there legally, this doctor intervened and said that blah, blah, blah. And so we got married in Gibraltar.
British territory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You're not a dumb blonde.
No, the blonde.
Sorry to tease you. Yeah. And she still thinks I'm married to her. She's what they call a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes, that's quite extreme, isn't it? I read the doctrine once a while ago.
I don't know how they can attract intelligent people. I don't. But they do have some who are doctors.
That's the security in masses, in groups, isn't it?
Yeah, and they all stick together. It's a cult.
Yeah, and some people can't do that, like me and probably like you.
No way. I'm an individual free thinker, and I'm thus a big target for Big Pharma, Big Brother, and everyone else, you know.
You're a
not your friends.
That birthday, 28th of February, that doesn't often blossom like that, but I feel you've fully blossomed into your astrological sign.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know much about
spirituality is high in that sign, isn't it? And knowledge.
I was supposed to be born on the 14th, but it was nice. Warm, food, no problems. Another 2 weeks.
So the intelligence of Aquarius floated into the Pisces. That's a pretty
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So Finland is very cold, but very beautiful in the winter.
Yeah. I stayed here because I've become friends with a young man. He's not so young now. Tarmo Virtanen. He's a lawyer and a prosecutor now. He has written a report. He read all the documents, and he's the one who said, Canada cheated you. You should have got €1 million, and the police should be charged.
Yeah.
And then several other lawyers said, absolutely, €1 million. They didn't. He read all the documents word for word.
Yeah, I mean,
except he didn't know about Spain.
It would be more than €1 million now if you had a lawyer and you took them to task. If you were able to, it would be nice if we could still achieve that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because I don't want it from me. I'm not a money worshiper, but I can think of lots of good causes.
You could also have a nice, gentle life for a change. That would be nice too, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, maybe not travel to Canada.
Yeah. Not that stupid. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
I've said some stupid things too in my life, but
Well,
not that.
if you were under stress, you might well have.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And what was the other thing? Did I write something?
So let's just
I
talk,
told
because
you
you've
about the
written
guards.
two books. You got the Ransac book and you got the Mulrooney book, and you're probably looking for a publisher, I suspect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried to talk to Peter Moon, Sky
No.
Publishing? I'll just send, I don't know him personally, but I've read lots of books that he's published and co-written.
Ah,
He might be interested, so I could do
okay.
my best to broker that to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I in my writing, I learned about the Masons when I was thrown into jail. There was an Indian fellow with an MA from the London School of Economics. He was not mentally ill, but he had tried to start a new political party. And they just kept throwing him in and out. And he told me how he had lost his business and his family with the Masons and what they were all about. Before that, I didn't even know who they were.
So what kind of years are we talking about for that? Because, you know, there are people starting to wake up to the idea of what's going on. But this was in the 80s?
1986, 87.
Yeah.
Late
They were
80s.
all
Yeah.
very hidden then, weren't they? I mean, my father lost a big business in 81. Similar thing. He had got lots of shareholders. Huge property was converted to a hotel. This little group came in and took everything over, pretended to be nice, and they were Jesuits and the Masons. It was an interesting little mix going on. And he was devastated, never really recovered as a human, as a good, happy human after that.
Who are you referring
This
to?
is just my dad, right? So I knew then that there were fishy things going on, and it's only later you kind of see more and more and more, and then you really decide to open your eyes. Thankfully, all of us are. Yeah.
He was Catholic, or
he was, but he converted to Islam. Isn't that nuts? So from one crazy frying pan into another fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it meant I got to see a few interesting things.
I should think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to stretch your mind. That's probably what you thought when you were twiddling your thumbs in prison for 8 years. Let's stretch my mind. What did you actually do to keep yourself safe?
When I was sentenced, they said 22 and a half years. I swear to God.
Oh.
And I wouldn't have kept my sanity that long. It's more than murder.
Well, of course. I mean, it's much easier for a soul to be freed through death. You just float back into the etheric realm and start again, than to be imprisoned against your will when you know you're innocent. That is just torture, of course. Yeah. So you had the beautiful woman from the church, and you had the lawyer, and some friends and family.
And then these two doctors who intervened, and one was an atheist, and the other one that I knew very well, an agnostic. And he says, I'm starting to doubt my agnostic.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah.
You've been used for the good.
Yeah.
Wow. Extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, this is good therapy for me, being able to talk to someone who understands. Because
let's have another talk about some of this in more detail, later.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it too long, because for most people, I think an hour is good. Probably got a bit more than that, but that's fine. And I'd love to, maybe you think about what you would like to share, and send me a line, and then we can see, because any of your experience is invaluable for other people, first to perceive what's going on, but also the testament of your spiritual and mental strength is extraordinary, isn't it? And these stories are very important because most people live a tiny piece of their lives, and you've lived quite
I've seen them
deep.
And in prison, I've seen them taking the bodies out.
Yeah. Yeah. To deal with death in your face is and this squashing of truth on a daily basis. That, that creates there's a German word for it, "zäh." I'm trying to think what that is in English. Like, it gives you that tenacity. It's such a strength. It's ridiculous. You must have this
Sisu. Maybe you're thinking of sisu in Finnish. It means endurance.
Yes.
Keep on going. When the Finns were fighting the Russians, they had sisu.
Yes, that's it. It is that. Yes.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
But my grandfather was quite the warrior, and he was one of a few Northwest Mounted Police who were invited to Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897. He had a romance with some lady in the royal family, and there was a baby.
Oh.
He had to resign his commission, and that's it. But we know there was a baby, and in her youth, my mother and Queen Elizabeth photos, twins.
Oh, weird. Wow.
So, I mean, it's the royal family doesn't, well, it's only interesting because they claim I'm related to, well, the royal family is related to me, not the other way around.
Well,
I find it humorous.
Some of the genes are interesting, and some of them you don't want to have in your system.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. They got some good ones from my grandfather.
Yes. Well, that's how they do it, isn't it? They bring in the fresh.
Yeah. The stud.
Oh, that is another story entirely. But I quite love to focus on something like that, of how you almost your survival to thrival, how you were this human being despite endless attempts to kill you.
I call it hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Severe hell. It is, isn't it? When this world is inside out, which it is really everywhere, unless you're in nature, and then it's feels how you survive hell. This is important that your testament is shared, because it's powerful. All the time as you're talking, I'm getting showers of shivers of truth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely resonating. So
I wouldn't mind speaking in public to people at all.
Yeah,
great. If it would help.
Let's see where this leads to. As we know, we're in this very chaotic, crazy time. It's like political volcanoes, which are important that they're going off, and we're just out everything. And see where this
total chaos.
Yeah, but with an engineering project underneath it.
Oh yeah. To us, it's chaos, anyways. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an evil mastermind.
There are some evil ones, but there are some goodies as well. I mean, there are both sides. Yeah.
Do you know anything about an MP called Philip? He's conservative.
No, but I know Rupert Lowe, who I like, and Andrew Bridgen was a good MP. He finally spoke about the vaccines. But Rupert Lowe is our one little hope at the moment. And Liz Truss is a decent female conservative. She was briefly prime minister until she hit Liz Truss.
Oh, yes.